welcome to the December the 11th presentation of It Happened in Grand Prairie, and we're taping this on December the 4th. And we are very excited to bring you history tape number 135, our 135th taping of the history of Grand Prairie and of the history of those that have caused that to happen in Grand Prairie. And we are so excited today. We have a very special long-time resident couple of Grand Prairie, Texas, Mr. and Mrs. Joe Perkins, and we want to welcome y'all to the show.
Thank you very much.
Joe and Florence, it's wonderful to have you all with us today.
Thank you.
And we'd like to open your history tape with Mr. Joe looking out into his camera and setting the stage for our interview by giving us his genealogy, telling us the name of his mother and father and maybe brothers and sisters if you have those. Would you do that for us, Mr. Perkins?
Yes, my mother was Minnie Woody Perkins, and my father was Joseph N. Perkins, better known as J. N. Perkins. And I had one brother and two sisters. My brother is dead, and one sister, and then I have one sister that lives in Garland.
All right, would you name your deceased brother and deceased sister, and also give us the name of your sister that lives in Garland, sir?
My brother was J.D. Perkins, and my sister in, I'm sorry, and my sister in Garland is Mary Catherine Moore.
Wonderful. Now, and your sister that passed away?
Virginia Walston.
Virginia Walston. All right, that gets us up on your family. Now, Mr. Perkins, where were you born?
Italy, Texas.
Down in Italy, Texas. Oh, that is wonderful. And that is in Ellis County?
Right.
Down in Ellis County. All right, being born in Ellis County, where did you go to school? Start to your school?
Well, I moved to Dallas when I was 4 years old.
All right.
So, and I went to grammar school in Dallas at William Lipscomb School. And then I went to high school. I graduated from Woodrow Wilson High School.
All right. Now, being then considered a Dallasite, having moved there when you were only 4 years old and going to school in that area, I know that you must have had some fond memories of living in Dallas. Would you tell us a little bit maybe about your school career, if there was a teacher in elementary school or some teacher or someone that influenced your life at Woodrow Wilson, and I believe y'all were the Wildcats, weren't you?
We were the Woodrow Wilson Wildcats.
All right. Tell us a little bit about elementary, if you had a favorite teacher.
Well, I had a favorite teacher there. She was an art teacher. Miss Carroll, I think was her name.
All right.
And I was very fond of her. And then in high school, my favorite, I think, was Maybeth Goff.
All right, and Maybeth Goff taught you what subject?
Well, she was a typing and shorthand teacher, and I was the only boy in the class.
Oh, that was great.
So I really ran things in that class.
You really did. If you were the only fella in the class, you had an edge then, I would say that. All right, what year did you graduate from Woodrow Wilson?
1933, January 1933.
1933. That was a good year, wasn't it? All right, and then typing and shorthand, since you were into that, what happened to Joe Perkins when you graduated from high school?
Well, of course, that was right in the middle of the Depression.
Exactly.
And I guess I couldn't find a job anywhere for about 6 months, but after that, I went to work for the W.A. Green department store in Dallas.
Yes.
And I worked there, as stock boy, salesperson, elevator starter, just whatever had to be done.
Yes.
And worked there for well, until 1937.
1937.
And then I was offered a job in Slayton, Texas, in the lumber business.
Okay.
I was there 2 months, and the people sold the lumber yard, and the fellow that had hired me said, I would suggest that you go elsewhere, because these new people are not going to want you. It's a long story, and I won't go into that. The reason I was there on behalf of this man. But at that time, we had already made our plans to get married.
All right.
And so I came home. So I got home on a Friday afternoon, Friday morning rather, and the company my dad was with had a lumberyard in Arlington, and they were needing a bookkeeper. So I got home Friday and I went to work Monday.
Oh, that is wonderful. From Slayton all the way to Arlington, Texas. We're going to let you rest for a minute.
Okay.
Now that we have you almost to Arlington and almost married. We're going to get back with Florence. And Florence, we'd like for you to look into your camera and establish your genealogy. Would you start from the very first and tell us about you?
From the very first, I was born in Brooklyn, New York, and my mother's name was Mary McLaughlin Walsh, and my father was Harry Walsh, and I had 3 brothers, Harry, Edwin, and Joe. The last 2 have deceased, and the older one is still living in Connecticut, whom we visit pretty often. Going to go to see him in February.
How wonderful.
And see what else.
All right. That was your parents and your 3 brothers.
And my parents both died when I was 3 and about 4 years old.
Yes.
And I was brought to Dallas by an aunt and uncle, and to be raised with them with their daughter, who was the same age as I was. And we had been here a very short while when my uncle took the flu in the 1918 flu epidemic, and he died. And my aunt had to go to work to support the 2 girls, and it was a little bit difficult. And so a man with the Western Union, with whom my uncle was employed, asked if he and his wife could take me to raise. So they adopted me, and
What
I was
a
brought
blessing.
up in their family.
That is such a blessing.
Yes, it
All right,
was a blessing.
would you like to name your adoptive parents?
They were Mabel and Joe Hilbert, and they had a daughter and a son, Dolly Hilbert and Harold Hilbert. And we were very, very close, and it was just, you'd never have known that I was adopted, because so many people said that I resembled my mother, foster mother, even more than her own daughter did.
Oh, that
So if I
is
had
great.
called her mother, which I did not do, no one would have ever known the difference.
Now, tell me this, Florence. Did you grow up in the Dallas area also and go to school here?
Yes, I went to Fannin School,
All right.
and then into Woodrow Wilson High School,
Okay.
and that was it.
All right. And that's where
That's where we met.
You
in
met
high
at
school.
Woodrow Wilson High School. Y'all were high school sweethearts.
Right.
Isn't that great?
Right.
Oh, that is wonderful. And then, of course, you knew about his going to Slayton. While he was in Slayton, Texas, doing all this stuff, were you here in Dallas, or what did
I
you do?
was here in Dallas working as
right.
a secretary in an air conditioning firm,
All right.
and I worked for 2 different companies.
All right.
And continued to work after you got back, didn't I? From
That's great. And so finally you got him back to Arlington,
Got him back.
miraculously, and into the lumber business. Isn't that
Right,
wonderful?
right.
All right. Now, which one of y'all are going to tell us about you all getting married then, now that you've gotten him back toward Arlington? Would you like to tell us about that?
Shall I tell that, or shall you?
Go ahead.
Okay.
You're doing a good job.
Okay. Then we married in October of '37, and we celebrated our 50th anniversary 3 years ago.
That is a good salute. 50 years
50
together. As a matter of
years.
fact, 53 years in this last October, right?
53 years together.
All right.
Very happy
Great.
years.
All right, and from this union, I know you're going to tell us about your children that were born and where you lived when they were born. Would you do that for us?
All right.
Florence?
We have 3 children, 2 boys and a girl, with the girl in the middle.
right.
And they were all born in Dallas. And Dick Perkins is the oldest.
All right.
And he graduated from from Grand Prairie High School and went to Texas Tech and graduated there with a civil engineering degree.
All right, where is he
And
now?
he is now in Fort Worth
Great.
with a consulting engineering firm, Knowlton and Perkins.
Oh, that's great.
And then our daughter was Julie Perkins, and she went to North Texas and East Texas, and then she is now executive secretary for the Tarrant County Independent Insurance Agents. And our younger son, David Perkins, also graduated from Grand Prairie High and went to Tech and graduated from Tech, and is now with, he's a CPA with Blue Bonnet Savings in Dallas.
Oh, that is great.
So that takes care
You
of-
have 3 gophers.
Yes,
Right.
3 gophers.
Yes, and
That-
our younger son was a kicker for the Grand Prairie Gopher
Oh,
team.
that is wonderful. We needed that, and we could have used some of that at that last
Yes.
game that we had, couldn't we?
We thought about that.
All right, all right. Now tell us about your grandchildren too, Florence, while we're here. We need to know their names and if they go to school in this area.
We have 7 grandchildren,
Okay.
3 of whom are in Texas Tech University. And
Would you
one,
name them?
I have to stop and think.
All right, let's go.
Amy Perkins,
All right.
Todd Perkins, and Lisa Watson. And then we have one who is a junior in high school in Bedford. And then we have 2 who are in school in Arlington, who are in the lower grades in Arlington.
That is wonderful. So you have
That's
some
not
of
terrible.
them.
One more.
One more.
Who's
The 2 in junior high, and then there's one in grammar school.
Oh, how about the
Oh.
one in grammar school? Let's don't forget that one.
Holly Perkins is in grammar school.
What grammar school does she attend?
It's in Arlington.
Oh, it's in Arlington. If it's in Arlington, we don't even want
We
to name
don't
it.
know.
That's good. That is wonderful. So 7 grandchildren, that is such a blessing, but with 3 of them in Texas Tech, that's costing someone big bucks.
2 of them are in one family.
Oh, that is wonderful. All right, Mr. Joe Perkins, a longtime entrepreneur in business in Grand Prairie. What brought you into business into Grand Prairie from Arlington and that lumber business that you were there, please?
Well, I wasn't in Arlington before I came here.
All right.
I was in Arlington, and the company I was with wanted to move me to a little town out in West Texas. I can't even call the name of it now, Cross Plains.
Oh, yes.
And of course, we were just married, and I didn't want to go there. So I told them so, and they said, well, we'll have to get somebody else to take your place. And at that time, my father had a good friend in Dallas or 2 men in Dallas that were going into the lumber business, and they needed a bookkeeper, and they hired me, and so that made it great. We were back home, and then I guess I was there for 9 years, and in the meantime, my father and my brother and Morris Hampton started the Perkins Hampton Lumber Company here
In Grand Prairie,
in
Texas?
Grand Prairie.
Oh, great.
And that was in 1947. And in 1949, my father passed away, and in October of 49. And in January of 50, I came out and bought out his interest. And then we operated under the name of Perkins Hampton Lumber Company until 1957, I believe it was. And my brother and I bought out Mr. Hampton, and then it became Perkins Brothers Lumber Company.
And that was located where on Main Street in Grand Prairie?
418 West Main.
418 West Main, somewhere near the Hoffman Florist that's located there right now.
Right now, it's right behind the Hoffman Florist. Matter of fact, the building is now A.J. Rod Company, I believe it is.
Oh, that's great.
And so we operated that then under Perkins Brothers Lumber Company until 1971, and my brother passed away.
Right.
And after that, I was having some health problems, and my doctor told me to get rid of it, which I did. And but I had a good friend in Dallas that was in the wholesale lumber business, and he needed somebody to build up his yellow pine business, which I was very familiar with. And he said, if you will come to work for us, when the pressure gets too much for you, get in the car and go to sawmills, take a trip.
Oh, that's great. Take a field trip. That was what you needed, wasn't it?
That's what I needed.
Yeah.
So I did that for another 8 years, I guess it was. This was in Richardson. And matter of fact, I retired from that job in 1980. But there was another, excuse me,
That's all right.
I have a drainage here I can't handle. But there was a lumberyard in Dallas. Man that bought it didn't know anything about the lumber business, so he asked me if I would come and give him a consulting job. Of course, I was on my own, do when I wanted to and when I didn't. So I did that for, until 1987, and then I just gave it up entirely. So I wound up 50 years in the lumber business.
Right. I noted with a great deal of interest that your brother was also in the lumber business with you, and your dad was in the lumber business with him. Did that go on for generations? Have you had generations of lumber business?
Well, back as far as we can trace, and father's side of the family, every male member had been in the lumber business.
That is wonderful. That is really great. Well, we appreciate getting this information about Perkins Brothers Lumber Company because they were a well-established business in Grand Prairie when I was growing up and all of the good stuff, and we remember with a great deal of interest a good business relationship. And let's get back to Florence a little bit. Florence, it's about your time. Tell me something about your personal family life, if you would share with us. Where do you all go to church, and how long have you been going there, and anything you want to tell about your church?
Well, we go to the First Methodist Church in Grand Prairie, and we've been going there for many, many years, and we are active in the church and like it very much.
All right. Do you teach any classes?
No, I don't teach.
Yes.
I've been on the worship committee for 2 or 3 years. And
That's a busy.
that's work.
That is work. That really is. All right. And when you came back to Grand Prairie and your kids were Gophers, were you in the PTA or any other club, or did you work out of the home, Florence?
No, I was in PTA, of
All
course,
right.
always,
Okay.
but
All right.
did not work outside of the home.
All right.
No.
Were you ever a room mother?
Yes.
Yes.
Many times, room mother. Yes.
Yes, that is
And
great.
that was fun.
All right. Do you belong to any clubs in town now, or have you in the past?
Belong to the Women's Club.
The Women's
Have been.
Club?
I'm a charter member of that.
Oh, great.
But I'm not very active in my attendance, I'm afraid.
Yes.
And that's about all.
And that's about
Used to
it.
belong to the 20th Century Study Club.
Uh-huh. They are
Long
a
time
very
ago.
wonderful study group.
Very, very great.
Yes,
Uh-huh.
that's wonderful. Okay, now let's get back with Mr. Joe Perkins, we've let you rest a minute now. We have the church part established, and we have Florence's record as far as doing good stuff in the community. Let's talk about council member, or I believe it was commission member, Joe Perkins.
It was a commission back in 1955.
All right, you were elected in 1955 to the Grand Prairie City Commission. How long did you serve?
4 years.
4 years.
I was not, excuse me here,
The hot lights get us some days, don't they?
Back in 1955, we had a bunch of businessmen got together and decided they wanted a different direction on the city commission. So they decided they would draft a slate. There was 4 commissioners and 1 mayor.
Okay.
And the idea was for them to establish city manager form of government.
I see.
So I happened to be one that was drafted.
All right.
And of course, served well. It hurt to name the others.
Yes, would you name them?
C.R. Sargent was the mayor.
Okay.
Dewey Miller was the commissioner. He was and Thomas Mays and James Weems and myself. And we served for 2 years, and then we were reelected for 2 years.
Now, who was your new city manager then when you all...
Well, the first city manager was Dean Dawley.
All right. Okay, he was the city manager when you all... Now, did you all have specific assignments, like one commissioner was over the water department?
No.
Y'all were just over all the city?
It's the same as it is now, except
there were 4 members.
They were called commissioners instead of council.
I see. All right. Can you remember anything exciting that happened in 55 through, say, 59 that was of interest, some of the good things you all did?
Yes. When we went into office, it was already in the works, the supplemental water coming from Dallas.
Yes.
And we finished that up. Matter of fact, we all worked on the bond issue and worked on it before we were on the commission.
Okay.
And then we also established the TRA sewage plant. There's a long story to that, and I don't know that I could remember all the details of it. But anyway, we were very proud of that, which has been one reason that Grand Prairie could grow. Because
exactly.
we were at that point, we were where we just couldn't go any further with the sewage problem we had, and the water too. And matter of fact, in 1955, I believe the population of Grand Prairie was something a little over 17,000 people. So you know what it is today.
Exactly. It has grown considerably, hasn't it?
Right.
All right. Now, that gives us a little bit about Mr. Joe Perkins as far as his city service is concerned. Did you serve on any other... Well, I know you've served on the recent bond issue.
Yes.
Bond committee that we have had recently.
Right.
And in what area did you serve this time?
The public service.
Public service. That is wonderful. For all of these years?
That's not public service.
Public works?
Public work. No, wait a minute. Public safety.
Public safety, like police and fire and all of the good stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
That is great. All the way from 1955, 57-ish, through 1990, being interested in the city is a long time public servant. And for you to take time out of your busy lives, you and Florence both, to go and serve on that bond committee, I think that is a real salute. I'd like to know about any of your other clubs. Are you a Lion or Rotarian or whatever?
Well, I'm a Rotarian.
Okay, all right.
And
You belong to Friday?
the Friday, well, it's the old Grand Prairie Club is what it is.
Okay.
The old
And-
man's club.
No, it's not the old man's club. We got a bunch of young ones in there now. But no, I joined that in 1950 when I came to Grand Prairie, and
This is your 40th year.
well, not exactly.
All right.
When I went to Richardson for the 8 years, I had to drop out because there was conflicts there because I was traveling so much.
Yes.
But then after I came back, but I've been back, well, I've taken 8 from 40, so that's 32 years.
About
I've been.
32 years in Rotary.
And I have 29 years perfect attendance.
29 years perfect attendance with Rotary. Now that is a mark of distinction. And when you miss in Grand Prairie on Friday, you make up somewhere else in the area?
Well, if I miss on Friday, I make up somewhere else in the area. Of course, I've made up in a lot of places around the
The
country.
state. That's great. All right. Now, we'd like to get down to something also a little bit more personal. How about Grand Prairie, Texas, if you've seen it grow? Mr. Joe Perkins, would you look out and tell us a little something about Grand Prairie when you first came here, your image of it, and maybe some of the people in town that inspired you, or maybe that helped you in business? Name drop some of the great old timers. You've named some of them here on this commission, and just anything you'd like to say about Grand Prairie, Texas.
Well, of course, there's so many people involved. It's hard to single out anyone or any few people, but it's been great to be here, and we intend to stay here. And it's just a great place to be.
Wonderful. All right, Florence, we're not going to let him get by without your getting to say about your feelings about Grand Prairie, Texas. Why don't you look out and tell us how you've liked it?
Well, I've always been very happy in Grand Prairie, and I can't think of any place else that I'd rather live. I really think it's a wonderful place to bring up children.
And you're going now to celebrate Christmas. Are you going out of the city of Grand Prairie, or are all of those 7 grandchildren coming to visit you?
They'll all come to our house for Christmas breakfast, and then we have not decided yet where the Christmas dinner will be. But it's an annual affair to have all the grandchildren and children for breakfast with us.
Oh, that's great.
The
And are you
Christmas
ready for all of that, Mr. Joe Perkins?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You're
He's
ready?
a big help. He does most
I'll
of
do
it.
most of the cooking.
That is great. He certainly is an asset to you.
Very much.
Well, I want to thank both of you all for taking the time to share with us today,
Well, we thank you for
thank
letting
you.
us do
to
it.
been a
tell us
privilege.
so very much about the Perkins Lumber Company, the Perkins Hampton Lumber Company, all the contributions that you all have made civically to our city, and of course Florence has made to the PTA and to the Women's Club socially and all of the other things. I want to thank you for being a part of this history show today.
Well, thank you. It's
It's-
our pleasure.
It's just been real great having you all
We've
with us.
enjoyed it.
Good. And this is Ruthie Jackson reminding you that history is as we live and do.